movies. Busting makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate movies. I am your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, a movie buff, wonderful producer, new friend, Adam Raia.
Hello, Jay.
Hello. It is very exciting to have you on. You came to me. You had a movie that you were like, this is the one.
This is it.
This is a rare occurrence when somebody knows right out the gate, this is the one.
Yes.
This is the one to talk about. And that is one of the most critically acclaimed movies of the past decade.
Yeah.
Nomadland.
Nomadland is the film that I hate.
Oh my God. Adam. How? How? This is one of the most, I mean, it's got a huge rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Because we know Rotten Tomatoes. That's just.
I mean, listen, if you don't trust the Rotten Tomatoes score,
what can you trust?
What can you trust? It got Best Picture
Yes, it
at
did.
the Academy Awards. It got Best Picture at a lot of the precursor
Yes, it did.
awards
Yeah.
as well.
A lot of awards buzz, and it lived up to its award buzz with the nominations. But for me, it was a very weak year. First of all, if you just want to get into that year,
Let's
of
get into that year.
2020, right? Yeah.
The movie that I always loved from 2020 that I wish had gotten more love was Sound of Metal.
Which was nominated for Best Picture.
Yes.
And that movie would have been better to win Best Picture than Nomadland.
I agree.
Right off the bat. Right there.
Right off the bat, I will 100% agree
Yes.
with you on that.
Yeah, I think Sound of Metal was a much better film.
Yes.
Had a few issues as well, but this isn't about Sound of Metal. This is about Nomadland.
Right.
But the fact that I think Nomadland will be a film that you're going to look back on in 20 years and be like, how that won Best Picture? Really? There wasn't anything better? And you'd be like, oh, the pandemic. There wasn't that many movies
That's
that came
right.
out. Oh, but still, that won Best Picture? You know, down the line, you have a certain films, you know, that you say that to. And this will be one of them.
I mean, let's even just go through the
Best Picture nominations?
The Best Picture nominations from that year.
Well, you have The Father.
yeah.
Which
Better
was
than this movie.
Better than this movie. Judas and the Black Messiah.
Better than this movie.
Better than this movie. Mank.
Not better than this movie. I didn't like Mank.
50-50. There were certain aspects that at least it felt like a movie, if that makes sense, which we can get into later. At least that felt like a movie. That was like something you were, you know. But yes, didn't love Mank. It was fine.
I think, this is interesting. I want to get, I'm going to put a pin in the
Okay.
didn't feel like a movie part.
Yes.
But let's go through the rest of these, right?
Minari.
I didn't see Minari.
Okay, Minari, much better.
I heard it was very good.
Small picture, intimate picture, fantastic. Promising Young Woman.
Love Promising Young Women. Better than this movie.
Better than this movie.
Better than this movie.
And The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Which I also didn't see.
Okay, that was better than this movie as well.
A good old Aaron Sorkin classic.
I enjoyed that film. I think maybe out of all those, I might have gone with The Trial of the Chicago 7 as those
Sure.
to win Best Picture.
I would have gone.
I enjoyed that a lot more. But Sound of Metal was close as
I would have
well.
gone Sound of Metal.
But right off the bat, how many more films was that?
I mean, that's like half of the nominees, right? Yeah. And there's other movies from that year that I'm sure are better. But that's the thing. Like, I remember I didn't see Nomadland until I think right before the Oscar ceremony. Because I remember they put it out on Hulu. Because this was the weird year. This was a super weird year, 2020, weird. Right? The 2020 cinematic universe, like, Judas and the Black Messiah technically came out, was not fully put into release until 2021.
Exactly.
Because they extended that eligibility window. And I remember watching Nomadland. I think it was right after the Oscar ceremony. It was either right before or right after. And it was the point where I was like, I want to say it's before, because I think I watched it and I was like, I understand why this is the front runner and why this will win. Because it seemed like it was pretty much a foregone conclusion at that point, right?
It very much was.
We were not at a point like we had been in previous years, like Parasite, for instance, 2019. Everybody was like, I think, wanted Parasite to win.
But it was a foreign film, subtitled. You didn't think it ever had a chance.
It never had a chance. But then at once, it's like, oh, you get this beautiful surprise, right? Even last year, to some degree, I think Coda was kind of the sleeper pick that wound up gaining a lot of steam.
It did later on, yes.
And slid in as Power of the Dog stumbled and fumbled at the finish line.
Right. Well,
While
Jane Campion said a few things maybe she should not have. But going back to Nomadland, so I saw this as soon as it came out on Hulu.
Okay.
Because I didn't go to the theaters. I don't know if it was even released at theaters
I don't
yet.
think it might have been.
Yeah, it was on Hulu. And so I'm a big theater going. I have the AMC
Stubs,
so I see everything.
the way you should.
So, but 2020 happened. But as soon as a movie was able to be released, like Tenet,
Yeah.
I went and saw Tenet in the theaters.
Oh, I saw Tenet in the drive-in,
yeah,
baby.
I
That's
immediately
the way to do
went.
it.
Now, when I watch films at home, I have a 85-inch television,
Good.
right? And I make sure the lights are off,
Uh-huh.
the phone is away.
Do you have
Right.
what's your seating situation for your home?
I am right in the middle
Okay.
of the 85-incher.
gotta-
Not too close, but so
you
I'm
reclined? Are
I'm
you on a
nice and
couch?
reclined, on the
Okay.
couch, but I have put my feet up.
There you go.
It's very nice, and I make sure I put my phone away so I'm not distracted.
Good.
Laptop away, nothing, because I'm going to watch the movie like it's supposed to be, and especially a movie like this that had all the critical acclaim and the Oscar buzz.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to sit down and make sure I watch this properly.
Uh-huh.
And you can rate a movie on how bad you want to be like, hey, what's going on Instagram?
Yeah.
Is anything happening on Facebook? What's going on in the world?
Yeah.
And this movie, boy, did I really want to check out other things. But I didn't. I gave the respect to Chloe Zhao and the film, and I sat there and watched the whole thing without
Sure.
interruption, but it was tough.
I could see. I mean, I watched it again this time, and having watched it a couple times, I was like, yeah, I know the gist of it, right? There's a lot of, all right, there's people who are the nomads. We're going to see a lot of really beautiful sweeping shots of this gigantic Western landscape in a tiny van or a little Frances McDormand wandering around, right? You're going to see the vast loneliness of human existence on a screen, and that's what the visual metaphor is, right? Like, I get it.
And that was it. So right off the bat, the film starts off with a title card.
Yes.
Right. And the title card talks about how it says in 2011, reduced demand for sheetrock.
Yes.
Now, I didn't know that the whole major driving force of this film was sheetrock. Who would have thought that? Right off the bat. Boom.
Shocker.
Sheetrock as the whole driving force of this film.
The gypsum mine.
Had to close down, right?
Yeah.
And the zip code, boom, was gone where she lived.
R.I.P. to Empire, Nevada.
Gone. So right off, you're like, wow, okay, this is going to be a downer of the film.
Yes.
And I don't mind downer films. I love a lot of Requiem for a Dream,
Yeah.
Seven, Eternal Spotless of the, what's Eternal
Sunshine and Spotless
Yeah.
Mind. All great films.
All great films, little downers,
Yeah.
right? Don't mind a downer film. But this one, just right from that title card, stays the whole way.
Yes.
It's a downer the whole way. There's
Right.
no ups. It's just only downs. There's no even emotional roller coaster because it is just one note.
Right.
The whole thing.
The closest I think it gets to having any sort of emotional roller coasteriness is in the relationship between the two only actual actors in the movie, David Strathairn
Yes.
and Frances McDormand's characters, Fern and Dave.
Fern and Dave.
They have this moment where you think that maybe, they kind of like each other. It's hinted that they have at least some sort of a platonic late stage in life kind of relationship. And near the end of the movie, Dave is leaving the nomadic life.
Yes, which she does not like.
She does not like. And he's like, stay here. Stay with me.
Yeah.
I like you. I think you're a great person. Everybody in the family thinks you're cool. Stay here. Why not? Your van's broken down. Your life's kind of. I can tell you need it. Stay here. And she defiantly decides no. And
Well-
that's the closest you get to any sort of potential peak where
Yes.
you're like maybe she will. But even the maybe, it's a pretty flimsy maybe.
And prior to that, there's one little scene where he breaks some of her plates.
Yeah.
And she gets real upset at that for about 20 seconds.
I mean, her dad bought her
Her
those
dad
plates
bought
for a
those plates,
graduation
right.
present. Worst graduation present of all time.
Yeah, here's some plates.
Here's a bunch of plates I
Yeah.
found for you at the garage sale.
But they meant a lot to her because she kept them in her van.
Yes.
She didn't leave them in the storage unit. Because
No.
remember, at the beginning of the film, she goes to the storage unit.
Yep.
So she's still holding on to things.
And she looked at the plates and she's
Yeah.
like, these are coming with me in the van.
Right. Well, actually, she looks at her dead husband's jacket.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Which
Yeah,
Brokeback Mountain did better.
Yeah.
But anyway. But okay, let's get to that, right? Let's get to David Strathairn's character.
Yes.
Very one note and boring as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I love David Strathairn in some fantastic films. He does a great job. And Frances McDormand did a great job as well. Those
Sure.
two, he was a little one note, but I also feel like maybe that's what Chloe Zhao wanted. Like, didn't really show a lot of emotion as well in his character.
Right.
And so when he says that to her, when they're sitting in his grandchild's room maybe, and they're talking about, I want you to stay. First of all, that was like Deus Ex Machina. Came out of nowhere. It's like, okay. We saw two scenes of them really together. One working together, and the one at a reptile farm.
Oh right, yeah,
Right?
where they're looking at the alligator eating the rabbits.
And is Fern a great person? What in this movie did her character ever shine or ever be someone that I want to hang out with this person? I want her to get off the road, and I want to spend the rest of my life with nothing. We saw nothing between those two characters that were like, he was like, I really like you.
I think,
Okay.
yeah, I'm trying to think back. There's basically like you have the scene with them at the very beginning of when they're at the R&R place, right? Where they're in the RV.
And he borrows
campout.
the can opener. She borrows the can opener.
Yeah, and she gives him a pot holder.
Yes.
And they say goodbye. And then they're at the Badlands, and then he's like, I remember you. You got my can opener.
Yes.
And then they hang out, and he breaks her stuff. And then they reconcile, and he gets her a job at the drugstore.
That's why I was like, it was Deus Ex Machina. Like when something came in for the plot's sake, nowhere did we see that a guy like that is going to be, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, or at least move in with me and my family. You needed that scene just to show that she's like, no, I want to live that nomadic lifestyle.
Sure.
So you needed that scene, but that came out of nowhere. You didn't tell me you weren't watching and being like, oh, wow, really?
I mean, I bought it, but also I think it's because like I have seen people in a late stage of life like have that kind of a relationship where it does feel kind of out of nowhere, but it's mostly because like you just want the companionship, and it's like I can hang out with you. I laughed while you were watching somebody get freaked out because an alligator ate a rabbit. We laughed together. We had a moment together. We sat together and did shots in a bar in South Dakota.
Right.
We sat in our
So
chairs.
now come with me and live with my family
Yeah,
in
why
the guest
not?
house, and
Why
let's spend
not?
the rest of our lives together. And she's like, no, I'm a nomad, which in reality, so this movie takes place in like 1 year, kind of, maybe
Roughly,
a year,
yeah.
year and a few months, right? Because
Yeah,
you
year
have
and
the Happy
change.
New Year's thing, right?
Yep.
She's like, so she doesn't stay because she realizes, she's like, I'm a nomad. I don't want to stay because I'm a nomad.
Right.
Now, prior to her, she never had those nomadic tendencies, right? Because she lived in with her husband.
Right. She had this job. Or not this job. She had a series of jobs, rather.
Right,
She
right.
was sort of living a couple of different things, but she had a place.
She had a place. She had a home.
Right.
She had a home. She wasn't even, there's that quote, I'm not homeless.
I'm houseless.
I am houseless.
Which she tells to the girl in the sporting goods store.
Yes, I am houseless. And
Whose
it's
mom
like-
has clearly been planting ideas. Oh, you shouldn't hang out with Frances McDormand. She doesn't look like she showered.
Right. She probably
Probably hadn't.
didn't
No.
at all.
Frances McDormand, that van is ripe.
Oh, that is so right.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, yeah. And they don't really talk about that aspect in the movie, but they do show her showering a few times, so I guess they show that. But anyway, so she's never in her whole life she's like, Chloe Zhao has this quote about that part where she's like, Frances McDormand's character, Fern, she feels that she left because she is a nomad at heart.
Uh-huh.
That's what Chloe Zhao says. Right? She quotes and says, the reason she left and didn't stay because she's a nomad at heart. Well, I don't know how old she was to be in this, 60, I guess.
I would, maybe like
something.
early 60s sounds about right. Maybe maybe late 50s.
Right. Was she a nomad at heart? She literally stayed at that town until it was wiped off the map.
Right.
That's not a very good nomad.
I guess
Like,
the closest you have is like she worked a couple of different jobs. Like she worked at one place for a little while in the town. She was working as the HR department for the mine, and then she had a couple other things.
That's nomadic? No. She literally stayed at this town until. So was she a nomad at heart? You can't say. I guess maybe she learned to be in that whole year. that she was off, but
Right.
and that's another.
But that's the thing. She from that standpoint, you're right. She kind of goes out on a lark. Like she talks about buying this van
Yes.
and how much work she's put into it. And the first thing she does is like go to this Amazon warehouse.
Right.
And it seems like she is still, for somebody who is supposed to be a nomad at heart, as Chloe Zhao herself put it.
Yes.
She is still really learning the ropes for like the entirety of the movie.
Yes, for that 1 year, she's learning to live in van life, but travel, go
Right.
to gig. So the movie's about the gig economy.
Right.
Right. So she works this gig economy, what she's learning about now. She goes to that employment center.
Yes.
And the woman's like, to show like, this is a movie about older people and to show that there's no place for you anymore.
Right.
You're too old. You have no skills.
Yeah.
So she's like, what am I going to do? I'm going to live this gig life and I'm going to travel from town to town, working gig to gig. Right.
Yeah.
And this film really didn't show the troubles as much as you can have from that I
Yeah.
think it could have. It brushed like, okay, her safety. I mean, she is a 60-something, late 50s woman by herself,
Right.
living in a van. And at no point were you really scared for her. There's one point where that guard knocks on the door.
That's the closest you get.
That
And I
was
remember the first time I saw that, I was like, oh, something bad is about to happen.
Nothing
Nothing.
bad happens. That, right? There's that one scene where it's cold and the woman's like, oh, why don't you go stay at where it's warm?
Uh-huh.
And she's like, no, I'm going to stay here and she's cold. Like, it kind of sugarcoats, I think, the nomad van life that is really hard. Like, even working at Amazon, right?
Right.
She works in Amazon. We know how hard it is for employees to
Oh,
work at
yeah.
Amazon. And this totally brushes past that. So much that you got Amazon to be a part of the film.
Right.
If you're going to have Amazon to be a part of the film, then it must show Amazon in a pretty good light.
They got to show it in a good light. But this is the interesting thing, too. Like, some of the most negative reviews of the movie come not even from critics. One of the most interesting negative reviews is from Tim Shaddix, who works for, he's the director of the nonprofit advocacy organization Warehouse Worker Resource Center, right? So he says, I thought there was a lot about the film that was very beautiful, but it left more than a bitter taste in my mouth. He was pointing to a 2019 study that found the injury rate at Amazon warehouses was more than twice as high as in the general warehousing industry. Again, this is one of these things that we've learned over the years about Amazon and the way they treat workers. This is back to Tim again. I felt like the portrayal of all the work in the film, but particularly the Amazon work, paints a very misleading picture of what our economy is like. It shows Amazon as a place to make money and enable someone's personal journey, not really dealing with how dark it is that you have companies that are taking advantage of often senior people who should be retired, but because of economic circumstances are working in horrifically dangerous jobs.
Spot on.
Spot on.
In that scene, the woman, when they meet the little kids in the grocery store,
Yeah.
she goes, are you still working on Amazon? And she goes, yeah, with a big smile. It pays great.
Yeah.
Sugarcoats it.
That's
then
it.
we see Fern walking in an Amazon warehouse that's leisurely walking. We know that doesn't really happen.
No.
And this warehouse is beautiful. Okay, that is a new warehouse. They filmed this in like 2019.
Yeah.
How about you go back to the warehouses, and this really happened in 2011. They probably weren't so nice looking in 2011.
Guarantee it.
Right? And so she's leisurely walking. And another issue is that Linda May character, who
Yes.
actually plays herself,
Right.
kind of like a version of herself.
That's as all of the nomads in this movie do,
Yes,
pretty much, which we can get into.
We will
in a
get into
little
the
bit.
acting.
Yes.
Because it wasn't good. But Linda May's character,
Uh-huh.
in real life, had to stop working at Amazon because her arm was getting so injured.
Sure.
Right? And they never talk about that.
No.
The real person, Linda May, had to stop working at Amazon because her arm, she couldn't do the work anymore.
Right.
But if you watch this movie, you think, working at Amazon's
It's not
amazing,
so bad.
you know?
It's pretty good.
And she wrote, Frances McDormand wrote a letter to Amazon and asked them if we could, film
Right.
in here. And they were like, yeah, they read the script and they're like, yeah, definitely. All right, totally sugarcoats how bad Amazon is to work at.
Well, because that's the thing. It's the big downside to basically having a large chunk of your film dedicated to how good it is to work at Amazon. you're not gonna really get at the
No.
heart. Like there is
Because you want the realism. This movie's all about the realism, right? You want the realism of this life,
Right,
And
that's
if
why
half
you
of it you're
have-
like not showing how real it
Exactly.
is, kind of that part let me down a lot.
Bow, 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 bow. Hey everybody, did you like how I just did my own theme song just there? I hope you did. Jay here with a quick interruption. I don't have ads, so I'm going to advertise myself in the middle of this podcast. Why not? This is somewhere north of 300 episodes when you're listening to this. And golly gee, it has been a journey. And I appreciate you coming with me on that journey for this whole time that you've been here. Maybe you've been here from the beginning. Maybe you've been here since like an episode ago. I'm just glad you're here. But I do have to say this. We here at Blockbusting, and there's literally a we. Chorkin, come around to the other side of the camera so we can see. Look, guys, I got a staff now, all right? I got interns, okay? I got producers. I got stuff to handle here at the space that I record at and elsewhere. And I want to be able to pay these people. And I, unfortunately, do not make the kind of money to pay these people myself. And that's where I hope that you can come in. By supporting the Blockbusting Patreon. Yes, that's right. We've got a Patreon. I haven't plugged it in a bit, but I'm going to start plugging it heavy now, because why not? I want to pay these folks, all right? And you can support the podcast for just as low as $1 a month, all right? $1 a month goes back into the show. I'm not even paying myself. I don't care about paying myself for this podcast. I care about giving a little something back to the people who help me out, because I'm getting a lot of help from people these days, and they deserve a little something for their efforts beyond just my eternal thanks and gratitude, which they're going to get anyway. So you can subscribe for $1 a month. You start getting access to bonus content from me, like I'm posting episodes of my game show Wrong that I'm doing here in Los Angeles that I'm not posting to the public. I'll start posting bonus episodes of me talking about stuff again. What's Good with Jay Light, where I just talk about what I liked that I saw on the television and the internet and stuff these days, because that's how you do for Patreon. We still have the JFlix level, the $5 tier, where you can get access to my full film, television, comedy special library. That's just $5 a month. It's cheaper than pretty much every streaming service out there, except for, I guess, Apple TV is $5 a month. And they have Severance and Ted Lasso, so you really can't go wrong there. And they got Coda. I mean, Coda, what a delight. But you know what I've got? Xanadu. And nobody else has that. Pfft, duh. I've got A Day Without a Mexican, Los Digits' least favorite movie. You listen to that episode, it's a great episode. But you got to watch the movie, which I have on JFlix for $5 a month. I got a bunch of weird stuff. So go consider, please, subscribing to the Patreon for Blockbusting. The link is in the show notes. Or you can just go type into your little web browser right now, tippity-tap it into patreon.com/blockbusting. Again, that is patreon.com/blockbusting. And your support will go to helping me throw a little cash the way of the fine folks who help make this podcast happen. That's all I'm asking, is you throw me a little something so I can throw them a little something, okay? We're going direct, because, you know, this is like thoughts and prayers with guns. Like, saying thanks is only going to do so much. I want to give them cash, okay? At least buy them a coffee or something. So patreon.com/blockbusting. You can join and support for as little as $1 a month. And that's all there is, folks. Enjoy the rest of the episode. For a film that has been praised, and I think to my end, rightly so, for like the way it does merge the sort of documentary, like cinema verite style with some of these elements of a fictional narrative. Like it's a really admirable, it's a lofty goal, right? And I do think watching it again, like I felt where it fell short much more this time than I did the first time watching it. I mean, I said this to you before. I came away, I still enjoyed the movie. I felt the things I was supposed to feel at the right times, I think. But also this time I could see more of the seams. I could see who this movie is made for. This is a movie that is made I've said this about, I don't know if I've said this on the podcast in a while. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I think that there's like movies that are basically made for stupid people to feel smart while they're watching them. And I think Nomad's one of those movies. I think Nomad's a movie that's supposed to be like an art house movie, quote unquote, for people who just go see movies. And they're like, oh, this is a film for me now. And it's gonna.
Ooh, they shot with available light and just handheld. Wow, this is a film.
Look at how beautiful these rocks are.
Amazing.
How did they do that? They got a camera and a wide angle lens.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that hard.
No, but you're right. It's a movie where you go in and maybe you learn something. You know, you probably learned a little something about this nomadic life and why people are doing this, 100%. But it was very surface level and didn't really dig deep into what it's really like for these people.
Right.
And that's an issue as well. It's like, yes, they used the documentary type angle with it.
Right.
Well, I'd rather just watch a documentary.
I think I would too. I think
about and really find out what's happening, and then instead of the Hollywood version of nomadic van life, because that's what we got. We got the Hollywood version of nomadic van life instead of really getting a documentary of what these people go in. Because I was never worried for the one part I was worried for Fern was when her van broke down. Her van broke down. That was a big issue. And then what did she do?
Takes a bus, goes and gets money from her sister.
And is a total ass to her sister.
Yes. I can see why they're estranged.
And that's why
she's such a bitch to her sister.
And that's another reason is like, is this a great person? Is this a person like David Strathairn's character that's just going to be like, no, because every single you see from her, she's not great to hang around. She's not a good hang.
No.
Let's put it that way.
Absolutely
she's not a good hang. And she was real mean to her sister. And she was also mean to her brother-in-law when they talked about the job and she scoffs at the real estate and how this guy makes money. It's like, you're taking money from them. The reason you can go back to your van life is because this guy's job.
Yes.
And you're scoffing at it.
It's a movie that I get. Look, and again, I get why this was the choice that was made from a storytelling perspective. And I get why Frances McDormand is the one who not only is like the lead in the movie, but also is producing it, right? I think she cared about telling this story. Something about it obviously resonated with her enough to help as much as she did with getting this movie made and putting on a performance that I think is a good performance.
Her performance was fantastic.
But there's so like, I would love to see what this community is like, because I feel like there's glimpses that we get to the sort of the itinerant nature of these people, and to like the glimpses of darkness that we have, and everybody seems to be running away from something.
Yes, they are.
And we just get little dips into it, right? Like the stone skipping over the water. We get a little dip into what's going on with Swanky, for instance, right?
Yes.
She basically shows up to be like, I got cancer and I'm just trying to live out my life. Bye-bye.
Bye, Swanky.
That's it. We get the guy, Bob, who played him. Oh, and these people are all played by the actual people themselves.
Yes.
And I do think like Swanky, they could have cast somebody else to play Swanky. Get Margot Martindale in there to play Swanky. Her story is good enough.
Yeah.
I love the story, but Swanky is unfortunately not somebody who can imbue it with the emotion that I think Chloe Zhao is going for as a filmmaker. I think Bob is the closest. Like if we had a film that was focused on him, his scene at the end where he's talking with Frances McDormand and talking about his son committing suicide and like starting to tear up and his voice is cracking. That's like the best anybody does who's a non-actor in this movie.
And I thought that was 100%. That hit me. It felt real. It felt genuine, right? And it felt like real emotion.
Yeah.
And I felt that with him. His other prior scenes, not as good. And then Linda May, right, who played herself,
right,
kind of, talked about she was worried about doing this because she didn't want to do a lot of takes. She was worried about 25 takes, right? And then Chloe Zhao comes up to her and Chloe's like, hey, I just want you to tell that story you told me about XYZ. So she tells the story and Chloe's like, great, moving on. They did one take and that was it. And you could tell. So Linda May was worried that she was going to do a lot of takes.
Yes.
And this quote, she's like, oh, we didn't have to do them. And it felt amateurish.
Yeah.
Even though they're telling their own, not everybody can be an actor. Like even if you're telling your own story,
it's fine.
It is so hard to be an actor, to really show that emotion on screen because it's different than just telling a story. And I don't think they did a good job and took me out, especially when they're face to face with Frances McDormand.
Right.
And you're like, this is supposed to be real. Like, I'm supposed to feel something about this, but it's amateurish. And you could see them thinking, and you could see them trying to get it out. And I was just like, it just took me out. Total. I thought the non-actors did not do a good job, especially when you're toe-to-toe Frances
McDormand, one of the greatest actors of all time.
All time. 3-time Oscar winner.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really lacking at the acting in that. And it showed when you do 1 or 2 takes with non-actors, that's what you're going to get.
Now, let me ask you this. You're in the world of production. You're a story producer, right? You know how to get people to talk in a certain way to get the story out. What would you, like, if you had to go back and if you get picked to consult on this movie, how do you coach? What are the things that you get what are the things you're telling to the Linda Mays, to the guy who's sitting who rides the bus? Right. What are the things that you tell these people to get them so they're not skittish about having to do things for a little bit longer and do things in multiple takes to really get the story out?
How am I going to tell them that this is going to take multiple takes?
Yeah. How do you get them to do that? How do you get to that point?
I'd be upfront with them and straightforward. I'd be like, listen, you're going to be acting, right? You are playing a version of yourself, but this is a movie. It's not a documentary. And the way we go about do things is there will be multiple takes, and we're going to have to get multiple angles. We're going to have to tell the story a bunch of times until we feel, and I feel, that it's genuine and it's the best version of the story. And you're going to be in front of Frances McDormand. So I'd be like, take cues from her.
Yeah.
Right? Take the cues from Frances McDormand. And we're going to have to do it multiple times because I don't want you to look ridiculous in a major motion picture.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, these people look ridiculous.
Poor Linda May.
Linda May. And like, wow. And you know what else? Linda May's character in real life stopped being a nomad.
Really?
Bought some land and settled down.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I hadn't read the book.
Yeah.
Have you read the book?
I read a bunch of the book because I was getting ready. Read a bunch of them. I read the whole thing cover to cover.
I
because,
love how
because
in-depth you went to this.
because I feel it was, but the book was way better. I mean, so much more interesting about these people and how they really live. And the person who wrote the book, journalist, kind of put themselves in this position.
Sure.
But still was a journalist. I just felt the book was, the parts I read, and I read a bunch of it, were way better than this movie.
Does it tap into the darkness that this movie is missing?
100% of what really goes on, getting your van broken into and being scared and parking in the wrong town and, all that stuff that this movie does not go into. And, another thing about this film was the pacing issues.
Yes.
Right? This movie felt like it was 3 hours and it was an hour and 38 minutes long. This movie felt like, I was like, and then when it ended, this is another thing about some of these movies, it felt forever. And then when you're ending, you're like, oh, that's it?
Because, I mean, it does. The last shot is Frances McDormand just walking off camera as you see the wilderness of her house.
We ended up back at her
old house.
Her old house.
In the non-existent town.
And that was it. How many, this one I was, when I'm watching the film, you see her, you're watching the movie and you see her driving shots. Okay.
Yeah.
Making soup in her van.
Yeah.
Okay. Peeing or taking a shit in the bucket. Which was probably, was like the big moments, right?
Oh yeah.
But
that's
then
the highest drama.
The highest drama was like she gets diarrhea and a shit in a bucket, which would have been a better title for this movie.
Yeah.
Because it felt like the whole movie was just
a
shit in a bucket. So you watch this driving, eating soup, peeing, shitting, working, manual labor. Repeat. Driving, eating in her van, peeing, doing manual labor. Repeat.
Yeah.
How many times did we see those exact same beats?
It cycled through. That's basically what, like 3 cycles of that we get?
Non-stop.
4, I guess. If you come
4
back.
cycles.
After she comes back, after she's had the stint with her family and then with Dave's family. But that's the thing. It's like, I feel this is the ultimate critique that I have. And I say this is still someone like, I think this is a good movie, but it definitely has, there's so much underneath this movie that we could have spent the time getting into, as opposed to just like, this movie is going to illustrate what the loneliness of this life feels like, and the monotony and the mundaneness and the banality of this life. And I think that there's a level of like what they're trying to do, what Chloe Zhao, I'm assuming, was trying to do, is with that repetition, you're going to show how banal this existence is, but it doesn't really get to, because of the way the film is structured and because of the way that Frances McDormand is being asked to perform, you don't really get a chance to see a lot of the weight that it has on her.
Right.
And you don't get to see the weight that it has on these other people, aside from, I would say, Bob in the very last scene.
Yes.
You get to see that weight, that like, this is a tough lifestyle, right? Like, you get to have this freedom, and you get to be this person who, even the sister makes kind of a decent point where she's like, they're like modern day pioneers, right? Like you're sort of, you're going in uncharted territory,
100%.
Emotionally, physically, spiritually, however you want to put it. You're going in a way of life that like is completely contrary to what you've lived for the past 60, 70 some odd years. And you come to this point where I'm sure that like you have to recognize, as Linda May probably has, because she settled back down. It's a life that will really take a fucking toll on you.
Right. And maybe cut out some of those repeat scenes that we've seen and put something a little more substance to even show that more.
Yeah.
Take out a scene where she's working. How many times do we have to see her doing manual labor? She worked at Amazon, and then she worked at the Badlands, right?
Oh yeah, and then she did the beet thing.
So how many times
beet harvest in Nebraska?
How many times do we have? Did we really need all of those, or could we take one out and maybe have something exciting? Movies should be somewhat entertaining, and I don't feel that this film was even entertaining because it was the same thing over and over and over, and at the end ended up at her old house and her driving away. And that is not entertaining.
This feels like it's a movie that is kind of designed to be shown to like an American history class in 15 years.
Right. Look at the slice of life that happened.
Look at how bad life was for people in America, and they chose to do this instead.
But it wasn't that bad. She looked like she had a great time working at Amazon. Yeah, it wasn't that bad, right?
Yeah.
So I really felt that it was just not entertaining, and a film should be entertaining. The pacing was totally off with these constant scenes of where she works, her eating in her van. It was just rinse, repeat the whole time, and there was no emotional up and down whatsoever. It was one note throughout the whole film, and even ended on a dull note. Like the climax of the movie is her going back to her old home and just looking at run down it is and looking into the vast openness, and that's the climax of the movie? Or was the climax of the movie her saying no to Dave? I guess. Was that the climax of the movie?
I feel like that.
Was
to me,
there
that's
no
the climax
to this movie?
Because there's no emotional roller coaster.
There's nothing. There was one beat.
This is, I think this is a quote from Ian Freer of Empire, who gave this a good review. And I think that this is like kind of emblematic of what the problem that you have with the movie is, right? Is that Nomadland is a Springsteen song in movie form, a beautifully rendered tale of what it means to be disenfranchised in America. First of all, Springsteen songs are all way more exciting and have much more like drama and stakes than this movie does. But life on the road has never been so tenderly captured, politically alive, and profoundly moving. It feels like this is, again, this is a moment, right?
Yes.
This is a photograph, right? Like, this is the modern day version of the pioneer woman photograph, who's like the lady in the Dust Bowl in Oklahoma.
Yes, I know that photograph.
This is what everybody knows that photo.
It's a snapshot.
It's a snapshot.
Yes.
There's an opportunity for this to have actual drama to it, and for this to have actual, a true story in the sense of like what you would expect from a story. And I remember as I was watching it this time, the thing that kept coming back to me was like, there's a level of, I would imagine because of all of the like the big sweeping shots, there's like Terrence Malick-ness to this movie, right?
Badlands
but that's a movie that's like, it has all of that, but it also has drama.
It has a drama.
Yeah.
Yes, at Badlands, and they go on a road. Terrence Malick's Badlands. What's that? 1973. I think it's 1973. And so much more drama, so much more interesting characters,
Right.
really, because some of these characters a little interesting, but once again, not that,
Right.
not that.
And even if we're looking at like modern, like Tree of Life, right?
Yes.
Tree of Life is sort of in the vein of what this is doing. It's not super plot heavy. It's existential, right? It's asking like larger questions. I think that what Nomadland's trying to do, but it also has action,
Yes.
and it has a plot,
Entertainment.
and it's got some entertainment, and it goes some weird places.
But you're there for it.
But I'm there for it the whole time because it's captivating. Like this movie.
It was very one note.
This movie is a movie that like you could put on in a museum or you could put on in a dive bar and people would get the exact same reaction.
Yeah.
They'd be like, that's pretty. All right.
Yeah.
And back to whatever else you're talking about.
It's a background movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's a background movie.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and I feel like they could have put. Not every movie has to be plot driven. Like
Yeah.
I love a good plot driven film. You
Same.
know, you know, the difference between Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick was Top Gun. There was literally no plot.
There's no plot.
Top Gun Maverick, they hammered you on the head with the plot.
Yes.
You got to go to A to B to C and this
Yep.
and this 30 times in that movie. And that made the movie so much better. Top
Yeah.
Gun Maverick was so much better because there was a plot and you understood it. They made sure you understood it.
Yep.
A miracle shot 1, miracle shot 2.
Yep.
Every time you knew what the stakes were. Where this movie should have been stakes.
Yeah.
Right? If you're living in a van, being a nomad, living paycheck to paycheck, there should be some sort of stakes, and there wasn't as many stakes as I thought there could have been. And I understand there's not necessarily be a plot, but when it ends up going nowhere, I guess the big thing was at the end, she got rid of her storage unit. So she's for real a nomad round. At the
Yeah.
beginning of the movie, she's, you know, she still has it. She pays whatever. This time she's like, I don't need any of it. So I guess that was the big thing. Like I became a real nomad. I'm not going back.
That's it.
Wow.
We've come full circle.
Wow.
Is there anything that you think could have changed this movie besides adding stakes to it? Like that would have improved it for you?
So I feel at the end of the movie, right?
Uh-huh.
If you had Matt Foley, Chris Farley's iconic character,
Uh-huh.
who lives in
In
a
a
van
van
down by the river, an old, grizzled Matt Foley pops up.
Yeah. He's going by Matthew now.
Oh, it's going by Matthew.
He's a Matthew.
And if he popped in his character and just had a one-on-one with Fern and showed what it really is to live in a van down by the river, that would have made this movie sing.
To some degree, Bob is kind of the Matt
He
Foley
was
of this
a little
movie.
bit. He was a little
because
bit.
he's the guy who's like, this is the van life,
This
and you
is
can
it.
live it, and everything's gonna be great.
This is
He's got a
it.
YouTube channel. He's probably got he's got one of those like platinum subscriber placards in his RV somewhere.
The Matt Foley character in SNL, right? He showed the hardships even more in that 3 little minute skit that they
Yes.
did a few times. How bad it is to live in a van down by the river.
Oh, my God.
After watching that, you're like, I really feel I do not want to.
feel
I'm going
for
to do
that
whatever I
man.
have to do because that skit is they hire him
Yeah.
to show why you have to go to school and
'Cause
right.
Otherwise, you're gonna be living in a
Live
van,
down by the river. And this movie's like, oh, you should go live in a van down by the river.
It's okay.
Bring in Matt Foley, show you why you shouldn't live in a van down by the river.
Yeah. I feel like this movie, if they had Matt Foley in here, you would have actually understood why this is such a terrible lifestyle.
So hard.
And that's the thing this movie doesn't have. It's like we have no real other than like, okay, yeah, you have Frances McDormand. You get to see other people. You have Swanky talking about how tough it is. You have Bob, you know, breaking and talking
Right.
about the running away and all that stuff, and Dave a little bit. But we need a Matt Foley.
You need a Matt Foley
We
to
need an
really hammer it
aged
home.
Matthew Foley
Yes.
played. Let's get hologram Chris Farley in there.
Let's do it. I
with
love
a
it.
beard. And he can still be wearing the same
The little
checkered
coat.
jacket.
Yeah,
with the coat.
the little.
Yeah. We can make it happen.
Yes, I would love that.
I wish I could do that. But you know what? That's going to be up for the meme lords on the internet to do. To put
Matt Foley,
this
put him in,
movie. Put him in
Nomadland.
Nomadland. This is a call to you. Yeah, I think, I'm not going to watch this movie again unless it's on in like an art gallery somewhere. I got better emotional pulls out of many of the other movies that came out that year, and I will definitely not be watching this again. But I'm still going to say the caveat that this is still a good movie, but it's also not a movie that
Is it Best Picture worthy?
is it Best Picture worthy? I don't think so, and I don't think that there's enough depth to really merit the level of praise that it has gotten, and I will concede that point.
This will be talked about like Crash. Remember Crash won Best Picture, and everybody's like, "Oh, Crash!" This will be the next Crash.
I mean, I saw Crash recently. This movie is much better than Crash.
Yeah. Oh, Green Book's another one.
Oh my God.
I enjoyed Green Book better than Nomadland.
I fell asleep during Green Book.
And you didn't fall asleep during this?
No.
Would you have to set your alarm for every 10 minutes to wake you up so you can continue watching? You know, picking this movie, I just want to apologize because this will probably be your lowest rated podcast because A, no one knows who I am, and B, this is a very boring movie. So no one's going to want to listen to the podcast in Nomadland. So I apologize for that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
This podcast is more exciting than Nomadland.
I think so.
And I will give you credit for that. By the way, nobody knows you, Adam, but where can they find you on social media if they want to see? Because you posted a lot of great stuff about movies and TV. And
I do a lot of my own reviews. So Adam Raia, Raia, and my first name Adam on Instagram, and I'm constantly putting my own little spin and my own how I rate movies. I like to rate movies. I like to rate cereal. You know, I like to rate life.
Adam's got good ratings.
I have
so
good ratings.
Follow his ratings.
Yeah, I enjoy doing that.
And you can find me at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, at Blockbusting Pod on all the social media for this show in particular. So follow those. And if you like the show, consider telling a friend and subscribing to the Patreon. You get some bonus content. You get access to some other stuff for just $1 a month. That's all you need. And it helps fund the show, which has a budget now that we need to achieve because paying out of pocket, a little tricky. Getting a little tricky.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live the nomad lifestyle and go work at Amazon in order to try and fund this podcast.
That would be horrible, Jay. We just talked
horrible.
about that.
I
Half
know.
hour we talked about how bad that would be.
Well, almost 45 minutes. we talked
Oh,
about this
you
now.
know what? You know what, though? If you watch this movie, you would think working at Amazon was amazing.
Yeah. You would think that. But then maybe that's why this movie didn't trick me is they're like, oh, yeah, Amazon, great idea.
Great idea.
That's why. If this movie did that, I would have believed this was a great movie and I would have argued with you harder about this movie.
Would have hit it harder.
Yes.
I would have enjoyed it more.
I wish, you know what, Jeff Bezos, if you're out there, you want to throw me some money to praise Amazon, maybe I'll quit this podcast and just do an Amazon-based podcast.
Sponsored by Amazon.
Sponsored by Amazon, baby. Adam, thanks again.
Thank you, Jay. This was a lot of fun.
Yes,
Thank you
it
so much.
was. This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.